Hey guys, how's it going? So I just recently had my committee interview and it went really well. I learned a lot from it, and it kind of had me reflecting on my experience with a pre-med committee, doing the interview and getting a committee letter. And I kind of wanted to just share some of my experience and maybe educate anyone who doesn't know what a committee is or what a committee letter is, because I definitely didn't know until I got to Weber State. So not all schools offer committee letters, and they also might differ by school. So I'm going to share my specific experience. So what is a committee letter? The easiest way I can describe it is a letter that summarizes all your other letters of recommendation, but it itself does not count as a letter. So if schools say, oh, we require 5 letters of recommendation, this doesn't replace one of yours. If anything, it just adds extra because it summarizes all of them, and it adds how much your pre-med advisor or how much your committee thinks you're ready for medical school. At Weber State, they have us fill out a self-assessment. It was like this 20-page PDF where you fill out all your shadowing, who you shadowed, your experience with each of them, all your volunteer experiences with each, all your leadership experiences, research, and you're just filling out a lot. And one, it's to help you fill out the application when it opens up, because you'll have all of that information right there. And 2, it's to help you see if you're ready to apply, because I was originally going to apply last year and I started filling out the personal assessment or the self-assessment. And yeah, I didn't apply that cycle once I kind of started filling that out, because I realized, nope, I am not ready to apply. My application will not be as good as it could be. So I just met with them and it went really well. They talk about all sorts of things. So they went over my self-assessment with me, pointed out grammatical errors, which I had quite a few. I need to work on my writing. They helped me rephrase things in ways that might seem a little more positive or professional. They went over my personal statement with me, and that's always so helpful. The more people you can get to read your personal statement, the better it'll be. They asked me questions throughout the interview, kind of like med school interview-esque questions that some had to do with the medical field, and they give you a dilemma and see how you respond. Other ones are like pretty random, and they just, it would show your creativity or your problem solving, your critical thinking. So there's like all sorts of questions that you could be asked. And I thought that was like the most fun part of the whole interview. I asked him to ask me some more questions at the end, because I was like, I like this, because some of them did stump me for a second. And I was like, how would I get a full commercial airplane full of jelly beans? How would I get all those jelly beans off the plane? And that was one of the questions. And I was just like, But they asked me another one that threw me off guard. And it was like, what's something dumb or rude that you have said in a conversation recently? And I was like, oh, whoa. And I think that's to see if you're humble enough to realize when you've done something wrong. But all that was really good. He also noted on my body language. The first question was, tell me about yourself. I told him about myself, and he's like, hey, you're swiveling in your chair. Don't do that. It's distracting. Your tie, tighten it up. Your facial hair, trim it the day of. He's like, facial hair's fine, but make sure it's trimmed up so it doesn't look wild. He's like, when you're talking with your hands, that's fine, but rest them in your lap when you're done. So he just had all these tips for me that I do, unconsciously. So I was like, oh, wow. And then throughout the interview too, he would be like, Brody, you're swiveling in your chair again. I'd be like, oh. And so I thought that was really beneficial for me, because you don't want to come across nervous or distracting. You want to be professional. Why get a committee letter? So 1, it doesn't count as one of your letters. It sums up all your letters, and your pre-med advisor will say how much they recommend you and how ready they think you are for medical school. To me, that just seemed awesome. And I remember in one of the meetings they were talking about it, and he's like, hey, if someone in an admissions committee is reading through applications all day long and they get to yours at the end of the day and you have 7 letters of recommendation, you think that's going to make them happy that they want to read all that? And I know that doesn't seem fair, but that could be the case. And he's like, and then if they see that there's a committee letter on top of it, oh, there's a summary for us. We don't have to look at all of it. So I think about half of the schools on my list, I'll throw up a picture and I'll show you guys my list of medical schools and how I've been breaking it down in another video. But I think about half of them prefer a committee letter and all the other ones accept it. So why would I not do it? If it makes it easier for their admissions committees to read into me as an applicant, if it makes it so they have less work to do, by all means, I want to talk briefly about maybe when you shouldn't get a committee interview or a committee letter. And I'm not telling anyone they shouldn't. If you want to do it, do it. But I think there are a few cases where it could hurt your application if you have a committee letter, and that's if you're not ready to apply. If in the interview your advisor realizes, wow, you aren't doing that well in classes, you're mentally unstable, if they just get any reason to think that you're not ready, why are they going to put their word on the line and recommend you in a letter? They might say, this student might not be ready, maybe give them a year. That might hurt your application. I have a buddy, and I'll get into that in a sec, or maybe you just don't have a good relationship with the advisor. I had a buddy who's just like, yeah, I've never met him. Really smart guy, good GPA, great MCAT score. But he's like, I've just never really been involved with like the Premed club, with the committee. He's like, I just don't think he could write a very personable committee letter about me. And I'm like, that's understandable too. And another student doesn't have the best GPA, and he's worried that if he gets a committee letter that they're gonna really focus on that and say, oh yeah, he's not the best student in this sense. So I mean, if that's the case for you, I would just, trust your gut. So for me, getting a committee letter has been super beneficial. It helps me realize what a med school interview is going to be like, except way more intense. And that's what my advisor was telling me. He's like, okay, are you nervous? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, well, imagine this same setting, but a bigger room with 8 doctors in here who don't want to be there, just to kind of paint a picture. And so I think it was a great eye-opening experience for me in that sense, as well as showing me the things that I need to work on, my interview skills, words to steer clear of, not being too relaxed. That was another thing. He's like, you lean too far back in your chair. And that's just kind of how I am. I'm a laid back dude, but in an interview, I'm going to want to show that I am also professional, that I can be professional, that I'm not just some hippie dude, you know what I'm saying? From that interview, that's where they gather, okay, is this applicant ready for medical school? Are they informed on the rigors of medical school? Are they going to be able to perform under stress and pressure? Are they going to quit? So stuff like that. And I think having a pre-med advisor who you've built a relationship with, be able to add on top of all your other letters, can only add to the strength of your application. But just to end the video, I want to say, if your school does offer a committee letter, I highly recommend getting involved, meeting with that pre-med advisor, building a relationship with them, going through the interview. I think it's just very beneficial. So with that being said, take it easy, you guys.